In this recording, I will go over your site's next steps after you have received your 3-acre Permit Obtainment Assistance Program award letter. The topics that I will cover in this video are 1. The different payment pathways our program offers. 2. How to receive reimbursements, which includes the following: general advice for filling out your W-9, guidance for filling out the POA cost form, and guidance for filling out the direct payment form. This video will not provide general guidance on the next steps for proceeding with the work to obtain your permit or typical milestones. For more general guidance on expected milestones, please refer to the cost breakdown table, which can be found in your award letter. In this section of the video, I will be talking about the different payment pathways that your site could follow. There are 2 payment pathways that you can follow depending on where you are in the process of obtaining your permit. If your site has submitted a 3-acre permit application, also known as a full notice of intent or NOI, or if your site has already received their permit authorization by the time you apply to the POA program, you will be required to follow Pathway 1 for reimbursement. If you haven't yet submitted your full notice of intent, you have the option of following either Pathway 1 or Pathway 2. But under either pathway, you must submit your NOI by October 1st, 2025. For both pathways, you can recover any related costs, even if you incurred them before applying for the POA program funding, just as long as the costs were incurred on or after March 3rd, 2021. I'll now dive a little deeper into each pathway. Pathway 1 is the single reimbursement for eligible incurred costs. In Pathway 1, there is a single reimbursement payment to beneficiaries at the closeout of the process after you have received full permit authorization. As such, beneficiaries may find that Pathway 1 is less administratively burdensome than Pathway 2, but it does require that the site has the ability to pay out of pocket for eligible expenses along the way. The Pathway 1 payment steps are the following. The beneficiary will receive their award letter. A W-9 form will be filled out by whomever will be receiving payments by the site. I'll cover more information about filling out a W-9 later in this video. Then once the 3-acre permit is authorized, please submit paperwork for reimbursement of eligible costs. And then you will receive the full and final and only award payout. Pathway 2 is the cash flow throughout permitting design. In Pathway 2, the beneficiary or their designated payee, like their engineer, can invoice at multiple invoicing checkpoints as outlined in the cost breakdown table. This cost breakdown table can be found in your award letter. Each milestone can be invoiced against only once. Under this pathway, eligible 3-acre permit review fees will be processed internally by DEC and do not need to be paid by the beneficiary and invoiced for reimbursement, although permit fees associated with other regulatory programs will not be processed internally. The steps for Pathway 2 payment are the following. The beneficiary will receive their award letter. A W-9 form will be filled out by whomever will be receiving the payments. This will either be the beneficiary or the engineer. And then this step is optional. If an engineer will be receiving payments directly, they must fill out a direct payment form. As long as the direct payment form is submitted before any payments are made to your engineer, it can be submitted anytime in the invoicing process. Next, the engineer will proceed with their design work for your site. The next step is for milestone 1, and this is an optional informal check-in with the stormwater team. This is an optional invoicing check-in point. The following step is milestone 2, and this is to submit your full notice of intent. Please attach your award letter when submitting your notice of intent to receive an internal payment from the QIP team to the stormwater team for their permit fees. This is a mandatory invoicing checkpoint due by October 1st, 2025. The next step is for milestone 3, and this is when your permit is released for public comment period. This is another optional invoicing checkpoint. The following step is for milestone 4, and this is when you receive permit authorization. This is another mandatory invoicing checkpoint with the final invoice sent by August 31st, 2026. And the final step is your final award payout. So just to recap, there are 2 optional invoicing checkpoints. That is at the stormwater check-in and when you are at the public comment period. And then there are 2 mandatory invoicing points, and that is when you submit your notice of intent and when you receive your permit authorization. In this section, I will talk about the W-9 form that is needed to receive payments. So what is a W-9? A W-9 is an Internal Revenue Service form, also known as an IRS form, which is used to confirm a person's or business's taxpayer identification number, also known as a TIN. Beneficiaries will need to submit a W-9 before they can submit any invoices. This is because payments will not be made until the W-9 has been thoroughly reviewed and approved by the state of Vermont staff. The person who needs to fill out the W-9 will be the person who will be receiving the payments, also known as the payee. If you are following Payment Pathway 1, the beneficiary will be the payee. This is because under Payment Pathway 1, there's no option for 2 payees because there's only 1 payment being made and it cannot be split. If you're following Payment Pathway 2, the beneficiary and the engineer can both be payees because there are multiple opportunities to invoice. It is important to note that only 1 payee can receive the payment per milestone, and it is up to the site's discretion as to who will receive the payments at each milestone, and it is the beneficiary's responsibility to ensure invoicing is coordinated between the payees. DEC will process invoices as they are received and bears no responsibility in confirming whether the payee listed on the pay request is accurate or appropriate based on beneficiary expectations. A good thing to note is that if the engineer will be receiving payments, you will need to also fill out a direct payment form, also known as a DPF, which could be found in your award letter, and please send it to us along with the engineer's W-9. There is a new W-9 form as of March 2024. You can find the revised form on the irs.gov website, which I will show you now. So this is the irs.gov website, and the new W-9 form is found right here. And you can tell it's the most current one because it says revised March 2024 up in the top left corner. So to go over the different fields that need to be filled out, the first is this box 1. Please enter the name that appears on your tax return. Box 2 is for the business name and or the disregarded entity name. Box 3 is where you select your tax classification. Box 4 is if there are any exceptions or if any exemptions apply to you. Box 5 and 6, please provide a valid mailing address. For businesses, the address here should match the invoice address. For part 1, please put the social security number or the employer identification number. Please only put 1, do not input both. And for part 2, please hand sign and hand date. Electronic signatures will not be accepted. And if you are unsure how to fill out your W-9 form, instructions can be found on the IRS website as well. So if I go back, instructions can be found under this link right here. And this page is all instructions on how to properly fill out the W-9 form. Just as a heads up, some common reasons a W-9 will be rejected is if there are any typos or errors in the form, if there are fields crossed out, written over, or covered up with whiteout, if the W-9 has an electronic signature instead of a physical one, If the W-9 filled out is an older version of the W-9, meaning it's not the 2024 revised version, or if there is more than one TIN number listed in the W-9, there should only be a social security number or an employer identification number, not both. Another good resource to use for guidance to properly fill out a W-9 could be found in your award letter under the invoice instructions section. It is the Vermont DEC W-9 guidance, which is this document right here. And once you have filled out the W-9, please submit it to ANR.ARPA3ACSW@vermont.gov. Please allow 2 weeks for the state of Vermont to process your W-9. We will not be following up with you if your W-9 has been processed. We will only be reaching out if your W-9 needs edits. You can also always email me if you have any questions or want to check on the status of your W-9. Some things to include in your email when you are sending me your W-9 is a PDF copy of your W-9. A JPEG or other photo copy will not be accepted. Please include your award number, and please give a brief sentence letting us know what payment pathway you anticipate following. If you are anticipating following payment pathway 2, please give an estimation of the number of payees you expect to have for your site. Or in other words, do you think you would like your engineer to receive payments directly from us at any milestone? In this section, I will dive into the POA cost form. After you have submitted a W-9, you'll be able to submit invoices for reimbursement. Please note that we will only make payments once your W-9 has been processed. We will not be reaching out to confirm when your W-9 has been processed. We will only reach out if edits are needed with your W-9. To submit an invoice, the beneficiary will need to fill out the 3-acre permit cost form. A link to this form could be found in your award letter in the invoice instructions section. The form will look like this. When you open the 3-acre permit cost form, there will be a handful of fields to be filled out. The fields you will need to fill are highlighted in orange. You will not be able to change anything else on this cost form. The first field is your site's award number right here. So that is the 3AP dash your number. This can be found on the cover page of your award letter. The second field is the name of beneficiary or entity. This can also be found on the cover page of your award letter. The third field is the name of individual receiving invoiced funds, also known as the payee. Since only one payee can receive payments per invoice or milestone, there should only ever be one name listed in this cell. This will either be the beneficiary's name or the name of your engineer's name, depending on your site's preference. We will only accept cost forms with payees listed whom we have a completed W-9 from, and a direct payment form if needed. The fourth field is the payee type. If the beneficiary will be receiving payments, please click on Beneficiary. It's a drop-down. If an engineer is receiving payments, please click on Engineer. Another reminder, if an engineer is receiving payments, please make sure you have submitted a direct payment form. The direct payment form will only be needed once. The fifth field asks if you have submitted a direct payment form. So if you are paying your engineer directly and you have submitted this form, please select yes. And if you're not paying your engineer, please leave this blank. The sixth field asks for the number invoice this is. So if it is your first time sending us an invoice, please put 1. If it is your second time invoicing us, please put 2. If it is your third, put 3. If it is your fourth, put 4. Since there are only 4 milestones for you to invoice against, and you can only invoice once per milestone, there should never be an invoice number over 4. The seventh field asks for the invoice date. please put the date that you are filling out this invoice cover form. And the final field asks if the site is a manufactured housing community, also known as an MHC. If yes, select yes from the dropdown. If no, select no. And if you are unsure if your site is an MHC, please refer to the frequently asked questions document, which can be found in your award letter. Once you have finished filling out the top portion of the POA cost form, you will then go down to what table suits your site. Table A is if you are following Payment Pathway 1. This table is for a single and full reimbursement only. As you'll see, there are 3 cost categories to invoice against. The first being stormwater permit review fees. We want to note that it is possible that not all of your stormwater permit application and review fees are specifically related to 3-acre regulations, and POA funds will only be used to cover impervious acres that are subject to 3-acre regulations. Any fees that aren't related to 3-acre regulations will be the responsibility of the beneficiary to pay. The next cost category is engineering costs. And the third cost category is for other permit fees or stormwater impact fees. This category is in case you had to obtain other permits required for 3-acre construction. For example, this could be for Act 250 or a wetlands permit or another type of permit that was necessary for your site. It's also in case your site has any stormwater impact fees. If you're not sure if your site has stormwater impact fees, please contact the Stormwater Program. If you're following Payment Pathway 2, you'll use the table below, Table B. In this table, you'll see that there are 3 cost categories as well. And under Payment Pathway 2, you can send an invoice at each milestone, amounting to a maximum of 4 invoices. Each milestone will have a description, a required deliverable, and a due date. You have the opportunity to invoice up to a maximum of 4 times and only 1 invoice per milestone. At each milestone, you're allowed to bundle all your prior unrecovered costs to date, as long as these costs are eligible and were incurred after March 3rd, 2021. The first cost category you will see is stormwater permit review fees. These fees will be handled internally by DEC, so you will not have to invoice the POA program for them. In order for your permit review fees to be processed internally, the beneficiary must attach their POA award letter to their 3-acre permit application. Instructions on this process can be found in your award letter. The next cost category you'll see is for engineering costs. There are 4 milestones for this category. Milestone 1 is an informal check-in with the stormwater program on your notice of intent draft application materials. If you wish to send an invoice at this milestone, you must provide documentation of preliminary feedback from DEC stormwater program on the draft notice of intent. This is an optional milestone and an optional opportunity to invoice, so it does not have a due date. Next is milestone 2, and that is the submission of your notice of intent application to the stormwater program. In order to invoice for this milestone, you will have to provide proof that you have submitted a full notice of intent. Proof that you could use is a screenshot of your email confirmation that you have submitted your full notice of intent on ANR Online. This is a mandatory invoicing checkpoint that must be done by October 1st, 2025. Next is milestone 3. Technical review is completed and your NOI is posted for public comment. To invoice for this milestone, you will have to provide proof of your permit posted on public notice. There is no due date for this milestone, and this is an optional invoicing checkpoint. The 4th milestone for engineering costs is that your permit authorization is issued. To invoice at this milestone, you will need to provide proof of permit authorization. This is a mandatory invoicing checkpoint with a due date of August 31st, 2026. The third cost category is for other permit fees or stormwater impact fees. This category is in case you had to obtain other permits required for 3-acre construction. Once again, an example of this could be Act 250, or if you've had to receive any other permits for your site. It is also if your site has any stormwater impact fees. And again, if you're not sure if your site has stormwater impact fees, please contact the stormwater program. Once you have completely filled out the POA cost form, please email it to anr.arpa3acsw@vermont.gov. Some other things to include in your email are 1. Your award number, 2. Any receipts that justify what you are invoicing for as proof for reimbursement that you're asking for. Please submit these as PDF copies. 3, an indication if you are submitting the last invoice under this project. This will allow the 10% retainer to become available to you, and it will notify us to close out the award. 4, the required deliverables based on the milestone you are invoicing against, outlined in the cost breakdown table. Once again, the cost breakdown table can be found in your award letter. And 5, if you are following Payment Pathway 1, there are a few additional things to include, and that is being proof that your site has received an authorized 3-acre permit, and 2, receipt of permit review fees paid to the stormwater program. To recap, in order to receive reimbursement payments through the POA program, you will first have to submit a W-9 to ANR.ARPA3ACSW@vermont.gov to have it be approved and processed by the state of Vermont. If you want to pay the engineer directly, you must submit a W-9 for the engineer along with a direct payment form. Once your W-9 has been processed, you will then be able to fill out the POA cost form and send it to ANR.ARPA3ACSW@vermont.gov along with invoices and deliverables.